Let's talk about the big picture about this very interesting topic, US-China tech rivalry. In this series, we don't just look at news headlines or what's trending for the moment. We try to understand what is really happening behind the scenes and why it matters in the long run. And today's topic is something you use every single day. Something that quietly powers your life, but probably something you don't actively think about. The US-China tech war. As we go through this, just keep one simple question in your mind, because everything will come back to it. Who is actually winning here? Hello everyone and welcome to the big picture. Everyday connection. Now think about your own day for a second. You wake up, check your phone, scroll through social media, maybe open an app, maybe even use AI tools for work or study. All this feels normal, routine, almost invisible. But behind all of it, there is something extremely powerful working silently. That is semiconductor chips. They are tiny, almost invisible to the eye, but they power everything around you. Your phone, your laptop, your car, your smart devices, and even the AI systems that are becoming a part of your daily life. Now imagine this for a moment. Two of the world's biggest and most powerful countries are competing, almost fighting to control these chips. Because whoever controls chips does not just control technology. But here's where things get even more interesting. This is not just about chips alone. And if we think like that, we miss the bigger picture. Let me explain this in a very simple way. Think of it like baking a cake. The chip is the final cake you see and consume. The machines are like the ovens used to bake it. And the raw materials are the ingredients that go into it. Now think about this carefully. If you cannot buy a cake from the market, you can still try to bake one yourself. But if someone takes away your oven or restricts access to it, then no matter how skilled you are stuck. You simply cannot produce the final product. And that is exactly where this entire game changes. So what exactly is the United States trying to do here? Over time, from the leadership of Donald Trump to Joe Biden, the strategy has not remained static. It has evolved significantly. Initially, the US focused on restricting China's ability to buy advanced semiconductor chips. But now, the strategy has become much more aggressive and deeper. The goal is not just to stop China from buying chips. It is to stop China from making them altogether. And that is a very big shift. This is where the Match Act comes into the picture. Led by Michael Baumgartner, this legislation focuses on blocking the sale of chip-making machines, restricting the software and services associated with chip production, and closing loopholes that previously allowed access through indirect channels. Even older machines, which were earlier considered less critical, are now being restricted. Why? Because even those older machines are capable of producing fairly advanced chips that can still power modern technologies. As David Sachs pointed out, this move could be one of the most important export controls in the entire AI race. So in the short term, it seems quite clear that the United States is ahead. But is that the complete story? This is where things start becoming more layered and interesting. China is not stepping back or slowing down in response to these restrictions. Instead, it is accelerating its efforts. Rather than depending on foreign technology, China is focusing on building its own ecosystem from the ground up. It is investing heavily, supporting domestic companies, and pushing aggressively towards technological self-reliance. Companies like SMIC and Huawei are already showing visible progress despite facing restrictions. Even under pressure, China has managed to produce advanced chips, which sends a very clear message. You can slow China down, but it is extremely difficult to stop it completely. So now the answer starts to evolve. In the short term, the US leads. In the medium term, China starts catching up. There is another layer to this story that most people don't usually see. While the United States has a strong grip over advanced machines and technology, China has a very different kind of strength. It controls a significant portion of the raw materials required for semiconductor production. Many of the critical minerals used in chips are either mined or processed in China. By controlling and sometimes restricting the exports of these materials, China has created its own form of leverage in this global competition. So if we simplify the situation, it looks something like this. The United States controls the tools. China controls the ingredients. Both sides have power, but they hold different pieces of the puzzle. And here's the most important truth that often gets overlooked. The global semiconductor system is still deeply interconnected. The United States focuses on chip design. The Netherlands, through ASML, produces the most advanced chip-making machines. Japan supplies essential materials. Taiwan, through TSMC, leads in manufacturing. China plays a major role in assembly and scaling. This is not a system that can be broken overnight. It has taken decades to build, and it is too complex to simply separate instantly. So once again, the question becomes more complicated. Who's really winning? Now let's bring this down to a more practical level. Take Apple as an example. Apple has been heavily dependent on China for manufacturing for many years. But now it is gradually shifting some of its production to countries like India. Not because it wants to completely leave China, but because it wants to reduce its risk and diversify its supply chain. And this is exactly what many global companies are doing today. They are not choosing sides in this rivalry. They are adjusting, adapting, and trying to stay flexible. And maybe that gives us a clue. The real winners are not always the loudest players. They are often the ones who adapt the fastest. This rivalry is not limited to just the US and China, it is affecting the entire world. Countries like Japan and South Korea are trying to balance their relationships with both sides. Taiwan has become extremely important because of its leadership in semiconductor manufacturing. Companies like NVIDIA and Intel are facing challenges as they lose access to certain parts of the Chinese market. The entire system is slowly shifting and everyone is adjusting in real time. Now let's bring the focus closer to home. India. While the United States and China are competing at the top, India is quietly finding its own space in this changing landscape. Global companies are looking for alternatives and India is emerging as a strong option. With investments from companies like Micron Technologies and strong government support through initiatives like the PLI schemes and the Semiconductor mission, India is steadily building its capabilities. India may not yet lead in advanced chip manufacturing, but it has important strengths. Its strength lies in talent, scale, growing manufacturing. India is not one single player, it's building across layers. Design and services seems to be India's strongest areas. Some companies operating in that space are Tata Elxsi. It is involved in chip design and embedded systems. HCL Tech, Semiconductor R&D services. Wipro, chip design and engineering. And finally, Infosys, involved in growing semiconductor capabilities. Talking about manufacturing and assembly, right now India is not leading in advanced chips, but it is standing somewhere important. In manufacturing and assembly, we have players like Tata Electronics, which is building semiconductor fabs and packaging capabilities. CG Power and Industrial Solutions is entering semiconductor manufacturing. And Dixon Technologies, which is already scaling electronics assembly under government incentives. So India's starting point is clear: assembly, packaging, and scaling up. Specialty materials and support. And then you have supporting players. Companies like Vedanta Limited, which has explored semiconductor fabs as a long-term bet, and SPEL Semiconductor, which is working in chip packaging and testing. These may not grab headlines, but they are part of building the ecosystem. The important question is, what should investors watch? Now, instead of asking which stock should I buy, a better question is, what trend should I track? Here's what actually matters. Semiconductor design services. This is where India is already strong. EMS growth. Here the electronics manufacturing is scaling fast. Government is pushing through PLI schemes and subsidies. China plus one strategy. Here the global companies are diversifying. Because the opportunity here is indirect and long term and not an immediate dominance like TSMC. Let's understand how India actually benefits. Now here's the interesting part. India is not trying to replace the US or China. It is finding gaps and filling them. As companies move beyond China, India becomes an option. As a talent hub, India already designs chips for the world. In assembly and packaging, easier entry point than advanced fabs. And domestic demand, India itself is a huge market. So India becomes a reliable alternative and a partner. But let's be real, the challenges. This is not an easy game. There are real hurdles. No advanced fab ecosystem yet like TSMC. Extremely high costs. Fab can cost $10 billion or more. Dependence on global tech, like machines from ASML. Infrastructure and supply chain gaps. And most importantly, time. This is a 10 to 15 year story, not something that plays out next quarter. If we simplify the global picture, US is focusing on design and control, China on scale and materials, Taiwan on manufacturing leadership, and India on talent plus alternative manufacturing plus growth market. Final thoughts. India may not win the semiconductor race outright. But in a world that is diversifying and reducing risk, India does not need to win. It just needs to be relevant at the right time. And if you look closely, that is already happening. So in this global shift, India is definitely benefiting from the entire story. So who really wins? Let's finally answer it clearly. In the short term, the United States is ahead. In the medium term, China is catching up. In the long term, there may be no single winner. Now the big picture. If we zoom out one last time, this is not just about chips. This is about how the world is changing. Earlier, everything was connected. Now everything is becoming strategic. Earlier, speed and cost mattered most. Now, control and independence matter more. And somewhere in between all of this, countries like India are finding opportunities. Companies are learning to adapt. So maybe the real answer is, the US leads, China adapts, India benefits. But the real winner, the one who adapts the fastest.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.